Okay, guys. Over the next few minutes, we're going to run through this little bit of training that me and some of my friends put together around trying to understand the gospel and how that can apply to our own personal lives and our ministries when we say that we live a gospel centered life or a gospel focused ministry. And it starts to look at some of the key questions that we were asking along the lines of uh, if we are going to be a gospel focused ministry, what are the key elements that are required for us to live up to this? What are the elements that essentially make up the gospel? And that got us firstly started asking the question, what is the gospel? And a lot of our focus of this came from when we started looking into Galatians, where Paul starts writing, I'm shocked to see that you're turning away so soon from God, who has called you to himself through the loving mercy of Christ. You're following a different way that pretends to be the gospel, but is not the gospel at all. You're being fooled by those who deliberately twist the truth concerning Christ. Let God curse fall on anyone, including us, or even an angel from heaven, who preaches a different kind of gospel than the one that we preach to you. I say again what we've said before. If anyone preaches any other gospel than the one that you welcomed, let that person be accursed. And we start going, well, what are the key elements? What is this gospel that in Romans that Paul says that he's unashamed of? Or in Corinthians, where he says, now let me remind you, dear brothers and sisters, of the gospel I preached to you before. You welcomed it then, and you still stand firm in it. It is this gospel that saves you if you continue to believe in the message I told you, unless, of course, you believe something that was never true in the first place. I pass on to you what has been most important and what's been passed on to me. And we started going, well, what is this gospel? What are the key elements? What's involved if we're going to live a gospel focused life or run a ministry that's going to be a gospel focused ministry? What essentially is it that Paul was talking about? And when we started to try and understand and unpack this gospel, we came up with this gospel web. It's a kind of an analogy or a diagram to try and wrap our head around the key concepts. So when we started focusing on this, we saw that there was key to understand the gospel was this idea of a theology and a story. Um, we have some kind of theology and story that shapes what it is that we believe, what it is core and essential to our beliefs in this gospel. What is that? And then we also saw that this gospel, when we believe it, it affects us personally and inwardly. It changes who we are. It affects us basically at our core. We can't believe in this gospel without it transforming part of our life. It also affects our outward action, the way that we conduct ourselves. This affects not only who we are, but how we live our lives. And essentially, this is a non agendered love to the world around us. We love because that's who we are. And we see that um, they will know us by the love that we have for each other. And this is core to the gospel that we believe. There's also an element that there is a mission and a call to this gospel. Um, it's about more than just us. We're not called just to be nice people, but we're called to call others into this new life, into this understanding. And in this sense, this is a kind of a gendered love. We love people in such a way that we want to share the gospel and show them Christ. And also, there's this spiritual, this God element, this non tangible element. Um, it's been said that Christianity is not about humanity searching for God, but God seeking out humanity. And in the understanding of this gospel, what it is to believe this good news, God is a central part, a pivotal part of this. So there we have this web of all these different elements play so intrinsically into the gospel. We've got this kind of theology story that affects who we are and changes the way that we live out our lives, and we call others to believe in it, and we rely on God as a pivotal and core element of this. But what starts to happen when we start to compromise this? What does a compromised gospel essentially look like? And if you start to remove some of these core elements, so you remove the personal inward element, we end up having a story that changes how we live. We invite others to be a part of this when we rely on God, but it doesn't change who we are or affect us personally. Then that's not really the gospel at all. We can't have a story that affects how we live, but it doesn't change who we are. Likewise, if you remove God and the spiritual from that, you end up having a story that impacts who we are, changes how we live, and we invite others to be a part of this, but it has nothing to do with God. That's not the gospel. It's not the gospel. Once again, if you remove the mission and call element to this, you end up having a story that impacts who we are, changes the way we live when we rely on God, but we don't call others to be a part of this. It's not the gospel. It's just a nice movement. We can love on people as much as we want, but don't call them to be a part of it. That's not the gospel. That's not good news. In the same boat, if we remove the outward action, if we remove the validation of this, we have a story that will impact who we are. We invite others to be a part of this and we rely on God. That doesn't change the way that we love the world around us or show God's unconditional love. There's no validation at all behind that gospel. It's just nice words. It's just a theory that we go to on a Sunday, but it doesn't change our everyday lives. That's not the gospel. If we remove the theology and story behind this, we change who we are, change how we live, we invite others to be a part of it, we rely on God, but there is no larger thing going on. There's no foundation, with no basis or substance behind any of this. And that's not the gospel. The gospel is so strongly rooted in um, understanding this core belief, these theologies, these doctrines, this story. It's part of something even greater. So to actually believe this gospel, it's got to be an interconnected, codependent story, a codependent model where each one of these elements need to be held in tension and in balance, where we've got a strong theology, understanding of this story that changes who we are as a person, changes the way that we live our lives, that we're actively being involved in inviting others into this life if it's really that good. And God plays the pivotal part in all this. It isn't just about us. I believe that that gospel web is something that is so intrinsically connected and required in our understanding of the gospel. It requires all these elements in harmony together. The biggest question, though, when we approach our culture today is going, is this relevant? As I work with many kids, the biggest question that they say is, I want to believe in God, but I don't think it's relevant. And the way that we live our lives and show this to them through church and through the way we conduct is that we believe in this God that just is totally not relevant to their lives or their world. But I believe that's actually not accurate at all. It's been recorded and commonly believed that as people grow up, as they reach about the age of 14 onwards, they start to ask 7 questions. These core spiritual questions that revolve around number 1, identity. Who am I as a person? Meaning. Why am I here? Purpose. What should I do? Ethics. How should I act? Belonging. Where do I fit in? Genesis, where did I come from? And destiny, where am I going? And from about the age of 14 onwards, people start to ask these questions, and it becomes the 7 questions they get asked for the rest of their lives. And if these are spiritual questions, if these are questions that everyone's asking, then if the gospel is relevant, I believe that the gospel must adequately answer all of these questions. And I believe this is true. And one of the biggest problems that we face is that we convey and we share a gospel that is not relevant and not strong. And as kids go about or people go about asking these questions, if some of them aren't being answered, the gospel's not truly being shown, and then they end up walking away because they're still asking those questions. So the first one, identity, we see that being totally summed up in the understanding of who we are, this gospel affecting us personally, inwardly. It helps shape our identity. It starts to answer some of these questions. Meaning. The meaning in our lives can be found in like the outward action that we're here on earth to show God's love. That's our meaning can be found in that we're here to love on others. Our purpose, why are we here, can be seen. We're here to share this gospel. We're here to call others to be a part of it. Ethics ends up becoming the tension of both of these. How should we act? How do we unconditionally love with no agenda because it's part of who we are, but also have this agendaed love? And that sums up our ethics. These bigger questions is how do we love on people, but then how do we hold this tension of this gospel? Genesis and destiny, where did I come from? Where am I going? Understanding the bigger picture, the bigger story. That's our theology. That's the story of the gospel. The bigger work of what God's doing in this world helps us understand those and helps us see our part in that journey. Where do I fit in and our belonging? I believe that this gospel ends up becoming like a singular atom. It relates to us. So where do we fit in? I believe belonging is essentially part of the DNA strand. We are one atom in this DNA, this bigger being called the church. And each of us, each person, find our place where we fit in when we start to become plugged in with the people of God, when we're plugged into the church, and we find who we are in true, who we really are when we connect in true, genuine community. So essentially, if someone doesn't have strong understanding of belonging, they'll keep searching for that. Or if they don't understand their purpose, they'll keep searching out that purpose. And I believe if we're going to live this gospel, if we're going to be a gospel focused ministry and what Christ really is about, so we need to start to understand this story that shapes who we are, that we can love others unconditionally without an agenda, but call others to be a part of this and rely on a God that holds it all together because he first loved us so we can love others. I believe that is the gospel. And the theology and story, I believe that is totally summed up in the works of Christ and how he came and lived and died to show this good news. And I believe that the questions that we ask, the key questions of who am I, why am I here, what should I do, how should I act, where do I fit in, where did I come from, and where am I going? The questions that everyone asks, that's totally summed up in the gospel. And what we need to do is be able to share each one of those and answer each one of those questions to the people around us in true loving and genuine relationships as we share this gospel in word and deed, in the way that we speak, in the way that we live our lives. And I believe that each one of these elements, if they're compromised, we compromise the whole thing. So the gospel is made up of each of these, and the more that we can understand that and live that in our lives, the more fulfillment that we will find as we grow into a deeper and stronger relationship with Christ, who works all this out. And may we work out this gospel and our salvation with fear and trembling.